Greetings from the Alexandrina Council. Let's meet the driving force behind the Alexandrina community. Chief Executive Officer, Andrew MacDonald. Mayor, Keith Parks. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Peter Oliver. West Ward, Councillor Bill Coomans. Councillor Lou Nicholson. Councillor Michael Scott. North Ward, Councillor Craig Maidment. Councillor Sue Miller. Councillor Christy Thornton. South Ward, Councillor Margaret Gardner. Councillor Millie Livingston. And finally, Councillor Peter Oliver.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting of the 17th of February 2025. An audio recording of this meeting will be made for minute-taking purposes and it will last the length of the open meeting. The audio file will be available on the council website after the draft minutes have been circulated. I'd like to welcome our elected members. We have no apologies or leave of absence, but Councillor Thornton is running a few minutes late, but she will be here. I'd like to welcome our Chief Executive Officer, Andrew MacDonald, our General Manager Community, Stacey Batson, our General Manager Infrastructure, Alan Harvey, and our General Manager Corporate, Tash Hunt, and other staff who are here as required. Would you please stand for the acknowledgement of country and the local government prayer? The Alexandrina Council and its community acknowledge the Ngarrindjeri, Paramount and Gardner people as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters of our council district. Almighty God, we humbly beseech Thee to grant Thy blessing upon the works of this council. Guide us in our deliberations for the advancement and the true welfare of the people of this district. Thank you. Just remind council members, if you have an interest in a matter before the council at this meeting, you're asked to disclose the interest to the council and provide full and accurate details of the relevant interest at the beginning of the meeting. You're also reminded you must also declare their interest and provide details at the time the relevant item arises for consideration. Item 2 is confirmation of minutes. 2.1 is confirmation of our minutes from the Ordinary Council meeting of the 20th of January 2025, and there's a recommendation that they be received. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Are there any questions relating to those minutes? If not, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 2.2 is the Section 41 Cemeteries Advisory Committee minutes of the 22nd of January 2025, and to recommend those minutes be received and noted. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Are there any questions relating to those minutes? Councillor Miller.
I don't have a question, Your Worship, but I just wanted to say thank you for how wonderful the new shelter at the Langhorne Creek Cemetery looks. There's been lots of positive feedback about that. Thank you very much. And also a note about the pistachios at the Strathalbyn Cemetery. That's great. That's being sorted out. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 2.3 is the Section 41 South Australian Wooden Boat Festival Committee minutes of the 28th of January 2025, and there's a recommendation that those minutes be received and noted. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Oliver. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Any comments or questions relating to those minutes? Councillor Maidment.
Yeah, I noticed there's a confidentiality around budget delivery and project delivery in the budget. Will this information be provided to all elected members and not just the few elected members on that committee?
Thank you. Through the Mayor, I can absolutely put that on the council members portal for all members to see.
Any other questions or comments? I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 3 is adjourned debate. 3.1 is adjourned debate regarding a report from the Section 41 Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road Project Steering Committee, the revised master plans and business case. Oh, sorry, I didn't have my microphone on. Lachlan, talk about it first, thanks.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to address members in relation to this item. It's quite a complex item, so the Mayor's actually asked me to just speak through some of the background and how we've got to where we are today. So members might remember in September last year, you completed a review of the Section 41 committees and advisory groups. That resulted in a number of the terms of reference for those Section 41 committees being tightened up, but also had a piece into transition a number of advisory groups into Section 41 committees. In doing so, that created additional standards in relation to memberships and requirements in relation to appointment of members. One of those was the Lot 10 Steering Committee. The Lot 10 Steering Committee in November had a meeting which the members participated and made a number of recommendations to Council. When those recommendations or the minutes came to Council on the 16th of December, members considered those recommendations and a motion was moved in relation to the recommendations from the committee. At the time, there were some concerns about the membership of that committee, and Council chose to do a formal motion and to adjourn that item until tonight's meeting. In the interim, we sought legal advice in relation to the legitimacy of the membership of that committee, and what we've come up with is that there was some of the requirements of membership were not actually fulfilled, and therefore that Section 41 committee is not considered to be valid, and by extension the recommendations of that committee are not considered to be valid. So the item you have before you is an adjourned item. However, the question itself that was adjourned is beyond Council's power to be able to deal with because it is those recommendations are invalid. So what we're proposing as the way to move forward with this is to, if the members who moved and seconded it, then Councillor Miller and Councillor Gardner would like to consider withdrawing the motion. That will allow that to be cleaned out, and then within the report itself you will see there's a number of other recommendations that management's proposing for you to consider. Just to remind you, this is an adjourned debate, so you pick up from where you left off, which means that Councillor Miller and Councillor Gardner have both spoken to the motion, and Councillor Scott and Councillor Oliver, who were the movers and seconders of the formal motion, have also been taken to speak to the motion.
Thank you. So I get the first thing I guess I have to ask the mover and seconder, are you prepared to withdraw this? Yes? Yep, so that's all we have to do, Lachlan, just withdraw it? Leave the meeting to withdraw. All those in favour that we withdraw this item? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Now there is a recommendation there which is a revised recommendation. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Miller? You wish to speak to it?
I do wish to speak to it, but I'm moving some additional points to that, Your Worship, that I shared with administration earlier today, that I can't see there. So what I would just like to, I know I'm very comfortable with what's being proposed there, but what it does do is leave hanging the status of the business case and the report, the TSA Riley report. Members may recall, and it's in the agenda item on page, sorry, I'll just check my notes. On page 15 of tonight's agenda, that which is lifting straight out of the report that this one was adjourned, that the business case was a legitimate, I guess, business case, and it was thorough and comprehensive assessment of the options. So I just would like that noted as well, and that we receive that business case and that we endorse the business case only for the purposes of the stakeholders seeking their own funding. We're not making a decision on the business case. We're just receiving it and endorsing it. We spent $150,000 preparing it. So I think just for the purposes of tonight, we need to just tidy that. If we're closing the loop about, we don't need the recommendations from the committee to receive that business case and accept it and endorse it as a document that this council prepared so that those stakeholders can use it. And the rest are as were printed, I think. That's all I changed. Thank you.
So we're actually adding 3 new dot points to it. Yep. And so you wish to speak?
I really have explained why. I don't need to complicate it. It's just noting what was in that original report, and it's not making any decisions except to receive the report and adopt it. And then whatever happens with it after that is still the subject of future decisions. But I think the stakeholders who have participated in preparing the business case are looking to have a document that they can chase funding for themselves. Thank you.
Yep. So do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Gardner? Any discussion first? You got a question?
In relation to point 6, which says endorses a business case, the report we received from TSA Riley actually recommended option 1A. Am I correct in that? Okay, well, I can now speak to it then, because we are expecting a comprehensive report, probably at a special meeting in a couple of weeks' time, that will canvass all of the issues that we discussed at the workshop. And for us to now endorse that business case, I think is rather too early for us to then have to consider the case when we have the special meeting. I think that's totally premature. I'd support the others, but I'm not going to be supporting, if the whole lot goes up, I won't support it, because I don't support number 6. It's too early for us to consider that at this stage. We need to consider the business case in relation to all of the matters that were raised at that workshop, not on its own. So I think it's rather it's not something I want to see in the motion.
Okay, is there any further councillor amendment?
Following on from what Councillor Kerman said, he's entirely correct. It is a little premature. It shuts out the option 2A if we accept this. I have a problem with thorough and comprehensive assessment of the options. We had a workshop on this, and some answers I got back from TSA Riley were incorrect, and I would like to be able to bring that to the attention of the chamber at our special meeting when we have discussions around Lot 10. Business case, big question mark over that, and was it comprehensive? When I've delved and talked to the user groups privately, and some of the information that came through to that report didn't come from them. So I don't know where it's at, but I'd like to enter into the discussions at a later date.
Before we go any further, the mover and seconder happy to remove that 6.6. Giving in mind we do have a special meeting on this item. You happy to remove that? So take dot 6 out. Or if we just remove that, that's yeah. So leave at the meeting that we do remove that. All those in favour of that? So that's carried unanimously. So is there any further discussion on the remainder? Do you wish your right of reply, Councillor Miller?
Yes, thank you, Worship, and I completely appreciate and respect what Councillor Pippins and Councillor Maidment are saying. I guess the important bit here is that we receive it, and I'm very comfortable that we are having a special council meeting. Are we happy? I just want to check that administration's comfortable with the end of February as a date for a special council meeting.
Through the chair, we sent out an email today to try and set up a special council meeting. We did ask availability for, I think, Thursday the 27th of February. We don't have full availability, so the next opportunity, the Monday, the 3rd of March, directly before the workshop on Council's long-term financial plan. So it would be nice to have that scope.
Your Worship, I'm happy then if that's okay to change the date in that last dot point to be the first week of March, no later than the first week of March.
Councillor Gardner, you happy with that too? Yeah, that's the date. We'll send a notice of that meeting out at appropriate time. Yep. All right. So any further discussion, Councillor? Well, Councillor Scott, we've gone past that. We've had Councillor Miller's right of reply, and now you want to talk to it. So, do you got anything to add?
Sorry,
to
well,
it?
I was unaware she was doing a right of reply. I had my hand up before, and
Well,
she
I
was
did.
given
No,
the
you didn't.
first
But
option.
I'm sorry, but you didn't, and you did hear me ask Councillor Miller, would she like to exercise her right of reply? So,
Well, I had my hand up.
and you moved the formal motion, and so you've already spoken.
Just wondering about that. I was going to query that before I spoke.
Now, so that brings that to an end. So I'll put the revised recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. That one done. 3.2 is adjourned debate regarding a notice of motion from Councillor Miller regarding Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road, Strathalbyn. Again, I ask Lachlan if you wouldn't mind to just give us an update on our position from a governance perspective on this one. Thank you. It's just so that you know, Lachlan is the manager for governance and communication, and we've known Lachlan for a long time, but he's been with us for a short time. That's great.
Right. Thank you for the introduction. Through you, Mayor. So in relation to this item, at the 20th January meeting, there was a notice of motion that was moved and seconded, and a formal motion was moved. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, formal motions can only be one of 5 specific wordings. One of those is in relation to adjourning a question being a motion that's been moved and seconded. Unfortunately, the wording that was used for that adjournment sought to adjourn the item to a council workshop. The way the wording of that part of the meeting regulations is set is that an adjournment of a question can only be done to either later than in the same council meeting or to a future council meeting. So unfortunately the adjournment itself was flawed. Nonetheless, we are where we are. The motion that was adjourned can continue from the point of adjournment. And just to remind members that in relation to that one, Councillor Miller and Councillor Livingston as the mover and seconder have already spoken, and Councillor Kermans and Councillor Olivers as the mover and seconder of the formal motion have spoken to this one.
Thank you, Lachlan, for that. So I'll put that. Is there any discussion from the chamber? Councillor Miller, you've already spoken to it. You will have your right of reply. Yeah. So is there any other discussion? Councillor Maidman.
So which particular motion are we looking at here? Is it option AA, is it?
Yeah. So Councillor Miller, just go ahead, let's save some time.
Sorry, Worship, I was just going to, because this is in the past now, I thought it might be helpful with the leave of the seconder to withdraw it and just move or vary it to say, note that that the briefing session was held on the 10th of February. That's all I was, and take the rest of it out because we've done it.
Okay, so Councillor Livingston, you happy with that?
I would prefer that it be varied to note that we've held the workshop rather than it be withdrawn. Happy with that.
Sure. So what are we doing? So we'll just need to seek leave of the meeting. And Councillor, can you turn your microphone off, please? We'll seek leave of the meeting for the motion to be varied. So all those in favour of that? That's good, that's carried. So Councillor Miller, could you let us know how you wish to have it varied?
Yes, Your Worship. I just wish to have it varied to note the information briefing session was held on the 10th of February, at which the TSA Riley Lot 10 Community Sport and Recreation Precinct business case was discussed. Thank you.
Second, happy with that? Yep. So is there any discussion? No. So do you wish to have your right of reply to the original motion? No. So I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4 is presentations and deputations. We have 2. 4.1 is a deputation from Miss Emily Down, Alison Taylor and Luke Taylor of the Mount Compass Tennis Club. So welcome, and over to you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Alison, and this is Emily and Luke. Thank you. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak to Council tonight. We're hoping to request a little bit of extra time over the 5 minutes, if that's possible.
Yep. 10 minutes, be all right on table?
That would be great. Thank you very much.
So, the chamber, all in favour? That's carried unanimously. So thank you. Go ahead.
Sure. And we do have some slides that we'll talk to, which, sorry, bear with me. Yep. So we're from the Mount Compass Tennis Club. So a little bit about us. So we have about 50 members, in addition to about 30 local children that attend weekly coaching sessions, and we have about 8 volunteer committee members, and we have senior and junior competitions in the Great Southern Tennis Association. So we have 7 tennis courts that currently have standard line markings. So we're proposing, we have a project that we're proposing at the moment to resurface our 4 of our tennis courts. So we have 3 sort of at the top of our hill, which are in fair condition, but the 4 on the bottom are in very poor condition. So currently the courts, they were resurfaced over 15 years ago, and they're used frequently through the summer and winter, and it's recommended that they're actually resurfaced every 8 to 12 years, so we've definitely gone past that recommendation. And despite the necessary maintenance, the courts do need resurfacing. There's a lot of cracks, there's potholes, very uneven, and the acrylic surface is very worn, which overall is posing a safety risk to players, volunteers and people watching. It's very difficult to play safely, it's easy to trip. It's very hard to run, so sometimes we'll have to cancel matches in wet weather, and it's an uneven ball bounce. So it's just a bit discouraging for new players and keeping players when our courts and facilities are not at their best. These are just some photos to highlight the current state of the court, so you can see that the green acrylic surface is kind of worn off, and you can see right through to the bitumen. And cracks and things that need to be fixed along the edges as well. So our project would involve laying new bitumen, cleaning the loose debris, and applying Tennis Australia approved acrylic surface, painting 4 standard tennis court lines. We're also planning to paint lines for another netball court, so we have the adjacent netball club in the same sporting facility, but hoping to have that for their extra training, and hoping to paint orange ball courts as well, which is specific playing lines for junior and beginner players. So we're hoping that by resurfacing our courts, we'll be able to improve court playability, accessibility and safety, and hopefully attract more players, new players, and keep our current players there, especially some of our junior players, to keep them playing locally. And it will definitely support our weekly coaching sessions. Hopefully, we're hoping to expand to more coaching sessions in the future. We can host more events there, and the blended lines is supportive of our more junior players, and of course supporting our netball club as well. So this is the anticipated cost of the project that we've been quoted at the moment. So that's doing the acrylic surface, net posts, line marking, and also the bitumen. So yeah, $191,488. This is the sort of breakdown of where we're getting our funding from. So obviously we have our own club savings. We also have some support from the Mount Compass War Memorial Community Centre and the Compass Cup Committee. And Tennis Australia and Bendigo Bank will provide funds subject to a successful application under the ORSR grant, which we have applied for but won't know the outcome from until May, I believe. So we are requesting from Council an additional $15,000 to support our project, which would provide less pressure on our club savings. We would be able to use some of our savings for other club projects and coaching sessions, and can put that towards the start of a sinking fund for maintenance and resurfacing of other courts. Yeah, thank you very much for your time. Please let us know if you have questions.
Do we have any questions? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you so much. It's great to hear about the club and what you're doing in the community there. You've raised a lot of money. With that $15,000, would you feel confident that that would secure your ability to complete the project, or is that sort of helping you to do some maintenance at the moment while you keep working towards more grants for the actual resurfacing project?
If we are successful with the ORSR grant, we will have enough funds to commence and complete the project. We will have enough funds to commence and complete the project, but the additional funds would just help in case of price rises and just give us a bit more of a buffer, as well as take the pressure off what our savings and fundraising has been to date.
Any other quick? Councillor Maidment.
Yes, congratulations on raising a significant amount of money. Is this the first application to the Office of Recreation and Sport? Because in my experience, it takes two goes at it, and if you've already had one application in previously, you've got a very good chance of getting it, and hopefully you do. I also noticed that where the acrylic surface is worn down to the bitumen, are you putting a membrane in there over the top of the bitumen to counteract that happening again in the future?
So in answer to your first question, this is the first application we've put for ORSR for this particular project. I do believe in the past there has been grant money obtained, but not within the last sort of 10 years, 12 years. In response to your second question, I don't know that there is a membrane being put down, but we will discuss that with the bitumen contractor and the acrylic contractor when that time comes.
Yeah, having done completed the tennis courts at Strath, we did put a membrane down, and it helps with obviously wear and tear and degradation of the courts, and I suppose probably 15,000 might cover that.
Yes.
Any? Councillor Miller.
Thank you. Yes, congratulations. That's a very impressive fundraising effort, and well done to your club for that. I just wondered, if you weren't successful with your grant application, if you'd consider a loan from Council. Council does offer community-based loans, and that's perhaps another option to consider in the mix of any funding for any difference that you have. But it's really impressive, and thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Any further questions or Councillor Coomans?
Thanks, Parks. I'll just add to everyone else's congratulations on, you've obviously done a lot of work in raising the money and getting promises, including the Bendigo Bank, and it's good to hear Compass Cup come up now and again as well. I know there's some money in that fund for things like this. If Council were to include the 15,000 in the coming budget, what sort of timing are you looking at, and when do you expect a response from probably reckon Sport are the only ones you're waiting for? What sort of the timing for that?
So they have stated that it's May 2025 that they will announce successful grant winners. After that, then we will have to book contractors, and we suspect that might be a 10 to 12 month time frame before they can commence. So the project may be, 14, 15 months after that before completion.
So if Council approves its budget, say early July, and if it was successful, would that work in with your timeframes for getting the work done, ready for the coming season and what have you?
Yes. Unfortunately, the work has to be done over the summer, so it will impact our summer season, but Tennis SA is very supportive of finding alternative arrangements. But the timing, would be an additional 15,000, would just help cover contingencies, extra price rises, which I'm sure will likely factor into such a project, and then help with savings for future funds. So yes, July would be.
We're out of time. So thank you very much for your presentation. And as mentioned, it's great to see how much work you've done fundraising already. Well done. Thank you. 4.2, a deputation from Mr Nick Bullock regarding a plan to mitigate the impacts of sea level rise for the Murray Estuary. Nick, did you wish to speak? Here you are. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Is it possible to ask for a bit more time as well?
So, Chamber happy with that? Extended time? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. Obviously here to talk about the Murray Estuary and a plan for sea level rise. I'd also like to acknowledge the Nurrunjeri people, the traditional owners of the land on which this community exists. We pay our respects to the elders past and present, and we're fortunate enough to have members of the Nurrunjeri community as part of our group. And we respect and learn from their unique connection that they have with this land and the land surrounding. So this is a picture, for anyone who doesn't know, of some of the communities within the area that are potentially going to be affected by sea level rise. As you can see, the Murray Mouth in the background, Mundu Channel in the foreground, and Goolwa Channel along between. So Coomarank is a Nurrunjeri name for Hindmarsh Island. It's also the name of a group of residents that came together in 2024 and purchased the title that contains 38 allotments in the area. We're a passionate community and we're wanting to work together to solve the issue of sea level rise. So we're here to support Councillor Peter Oliver's notice of motion to develop a sensible, flexible plan to mitigate the risk of sea level rise. So the journey's well underway. As I'm sure you know, there was the coastal adaptation study from 2020. Within that, it said seawater is likely to inundate private and public land in storm surges and annual high tides. So that was specifically for the Mundu Channel Drive section. Coastal adaptation plan was then done in 2022. The necessary engagement, planning and assessment works need to be pursued as a high priority. Following that was the Coastal Emergency Plan 2024. So within that plan, it outlined risks to the Goolwa and Mundu Channel community, some that included the risk of injury and fatality. So I think we're at the point where we really need a plan that hits the ground. The benefits of the plan are broad. I won't go into all the detail, but there's obviously quite a significant emotional impact on all the different residents of the area, particularly not having a plan. There's environmental benefits that a plan will create. It'll bring us together to be able to work on all of those environmental issues together. There'll be economic benefits through the release of pent-up capital within the area that I can assure you is there, and that will vastly improve the aesthetics of the communities around around the Murray Estuary. And there's also the reduction in risk for all of the residents. There's a benefit that moves across to the Coast Protection Board, and particularly our relationship with the Coast Protection Board. Obviously, they're a vital stakeholder. We need to build trust in them that there's future viability of our community. We need to take the community out of the holding pattern that we're currently in and have been in for years. And we need to build on the work that the Coastal Protection Board and the Council have done to date. I received a letter from the Coastal Protection Board last year in September, and one of the statements was, as you are aware, the Mundu Channel settlement is subject to unaddressed coastal hazard risks that will likely increase over time. So they're still seeing these issues as unaddressed. The community group, they also commended us. The community group is commended for exploring solutions and engaging with the board and the council on this difficult matter. I wanted to show this graph, and I'll go into why, but the original coastal adaptation study that was completed in 2020 used two key pieces of data. And those two key pieces of data are the two red crosses on that graph. So this graph represents potential sea level rise as outlined by the IPCC for the Alexandrina Council. The red line with the red shading is the worst case scenario, and the blue line is the best case scenario that they've released. Unfortunately, nowhere in that report did it mention that those two statistics were based on the worst case scenario, particularly the 2100 number, which is actually above the worst case scenario. So that led to some misleading statements based on evidence presented in this report. It is unlikely that Goolwa Channel settlements would be viable by 2100 if sea levels rise as projected. I think that is misleading, and it already is having impact on decisions that are affecting our community through some of the Coastal Protection Board communications. Why do I bring this up? Simply because if this plan is adopted and it only looks at these data points as the last three documents have, I believe it'll fail financially and not gain community support. We have time. Currently, sea levels are rising by 3.4 millimetres per year. No one knows how quickly this sea level will rise, and the costs of adopting only the CAS numbers, I think, could be unviable and even potentially lead to wasted expense. So monitor and adapt is the only sensible theme that a plan should consider. So in summary, thank you wholeheartedly for the progress you have made. It's been quite amazing the amount of effort that's gone into this to date. Right now, our community is still facing significant uncertainty. Without a plan, we kindly ask you to consider Peter Oliver's notice of motion for a budget allocation towards the development of a plan that supports the community to work together to mitigate the risk of sea level rise. And we ask that this plan is sensible and embraces timeframes and uncertainty of sea level rise. Thank you.
So thank you, Nick. Are there any questions of Nick? Comments? Nick, I don't recall this coming up with Project Coorong. Have you spoken to the people at Project Coorong?
No.
So Project Coorong is a $70 million project funded by the federal government for the restoration and protection of the Coorong, the barrages and the sea walls along Mundu Channel, along the so down between New Island and Tawitchery. You know, there's a concrete wall runs along.
Yep.
That's too low.
Yep.
So I know the barrages on that part of infrastructure is in the top 10 priorities for that project. And just only a few weeks ago, the federal government announced the continuation of that funding, so the project will continue. So I actually sit on that board, and so you're welcome to write to Dean Brown, who's the chair, and get it put onto our agenda, and let's have a look at it.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you.
right. Is there anything else? Any questions, anybody? No? So thanks very much for your presentation. Thanks. So item 5 is petitions. 5.1 is the proposed relocation of the Visitor Information Centre to Signal Point, and there's a recommendation that the petition is received and moved. Councillor Gardner. Seconder. Councillor Oliver. So I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Item 6 is questions with notice. 6.1 is a question from Councillor Oliver regarding the proposed sale of the Customs House. 6.2 is a question from Councillor Miller regarding changes to land use codes and rating categories. And the answers, those questions and the answers to them are provided in the agenda. Item 7 is questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Not. We'll move on to item 8, which is notice of motions. 8.1 is a notice of motion from Councillor Oliver regarding the Murray Estuary coastal adaptation that we just had a presentation on. So, Councillor Oliver, do you wish to move and speak to it?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Could I please welcome my neighbours from our Murray Estuary settlements, and I'd like to thank Nick Bullock for his excellent deputation. As explained by Nick, climate change will present significant risks and issues for our coastal settlements, and we have a unique combination of factors, and the current modelling, while worst case and then some, suggests that low-lying parts may not be sustainable over time due to rising sea levels. And significant work and consultation has already been undertaken to date to understand these issues, including the items or bodies of work that Nick mentioned. So I'd like to, I'm not going to go through that again, but congratulate the administration on their stakeholder collaboration and their success to date, including the awards that they have won for this project. Well done. I'd also like to congratulate and thank the local residents for their achievements working together. It is now, however, time to progress this work to the next stage. And importantly, this will include planning to meet the needs of the coastal adaptation, including sea level rise in our local area. So thank you in advance for your support of this motion.
So do we have a seconder? Councillor Livingston. Speaking. Councillor Gardner, you wish to speak to it? So is there any discussion, questions? Councillor Scott.
This is all worthy, but my memory of the plan is that there'll be areas of Middleton that are as exposed as areas over in Mundoo. And I would hope that any plan that we develop will not only include the needy areas of Mundoo, but will also recognise the needy areas of the Middleton district and Port Elliot if necessary.
Councillor Coomans.
Look, mention was made in the admin comments on the Horseshoe Bay mitigation and adaptation. And I understand that the process for funding and delivery for the Goolwa and Mundoo channel would be the same as that, or is it something different? Is there some sort of update you could provide on the Horseshoe Bay one, where it is in terms of delivery and currently at? I'm just trying to get Council to have a bit of a sense about what this is all about, you know, what sort of work's involved in the delivery and so forth.
Matt, could you give us an update on where we are there?
Sure, through the Chair. The Horseshoe Bay works are currently, the initial work's been completed. We need to come back to Council shortly to work through what the next steps are going to be in terms of how we're going to communicate the findings to the community and engage with the relevant stakeholders to be able to take their advice before progressing that project. But the point that was made in the officer's recommendation was that that is a similar process as led out of the coastal adaptation study and the plan that we've already got.
Any further? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Worship. I just am making an observation, I guess, not necessarily a question. So, point one, Council adopted the coastal adaptation plan, as I understand it, in 2022. So that would suggest that there's support for the steps that were identified in that. So, and I think the second part is consider, because that's the word consider, funding as part of the business plan. I am happy to support this because it's asking us to support something that we've already adopted, so I guess there's no harm in doing that. And it's consider funding. We're not actually going to commit to funding, but it will be in the budget mix, so I'm quite comfortable to support this because it's not committing us to anything. And it was good, an interesting read. I wish I'd had more time to go back and explore this document further. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? So, Councillor Wallaby, should we write a reply? No? So I'll put the motion to. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 8.2 is a motion from Councillor Miller regarding a dog park in Strathalbyn. It's moved by Councillor Miller. Do you wish to speak to that?
Thank you, Worship. I actually I'm happy to withdraw this and actually put forward the motion that the suggested wording from administration. I'm really comfortable with that. If you'll permit me to replace the wording with administrations, and then I'll speak to it.
So you're happy to move, instead of moving your original wording, you'll move what I've got on the back, which is what? On the back of that? On the screen now? Yep. So it's moved, Councillor Miller. And do you wish to speak to that?
Just very briefly, this was the topic of quite a lot of consultation that was very well responded to. All my reasoning's in the background, so I won't bore everyone with reading through that. But we have this incredible opportunity to acknowledge the feedback from the community, the demand from the community. I think it's been probably the one consistent theme that's come through the village conversations and been raised with me, and 200 people responded, which was pretty amazing. It was just the location of it that was an issue, so I'm very happy if we can just investigate further and keep that in the mix.
Do we have a second? Second to Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? Councillor Scott.
Yeah, this whole dog park thing has just been going on and on and on, and it's similar to my attitude towards some of the other Lot 10 constituents. Why can't we just allocate an area and let them get on with it? We've proven that you can set up a very nice dog park with a community group and accessing a few grants here and there, as happened at Port Elliot. And yes, there was council support for the fence, putting the fence up, but it just seems to be coming back and back and back. We've got the land out there. Regardless of what else happens, if we're going to have a dog park in that corner, which is probably a good thing for a pointy end of a piece of land like that, just allocate it, dog park here. Get on with it, Strathalbyn, and leave it to them, and they'll get on and do it. They're a country community, but we're just going back and back and back. So, you know, let's just let them do it.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Worship. I support this. I think, as Councillor Scott said, this, and that we all know, this is a complex, very long-term project that what we need to do at the moment is make some very preliminary early decisions on so that the user groups and the community know what could be where. and they can start working individually and independently of council towards activating those spaces. So I think that looking at an initial stage of development, knowing that there are so many moving parts to this project, if we can just simplify an initial stage and lock that in and then add all of the pieces around it, that is some really early progress that the community can then start leaning into. So I think this is a good idea. Thank you.
Anything further? Councillor Maidman.
We don't want to rush into it too soon because it's only been 6 years in the making. So all we're asking, the Strathalbyn community are asking, is that, yes, a fence go up in that little corner. The other option for a dog park, which you heard a deputation against, is now housing storage tanks for our CWMS. So that wouldn't make a very good dog park now. So the only option is Lot 10. And as Councillor Scott said, there's a corner piece which is no good to anyone, and it would make an ideal spot. Put up a fence and then we're done, and let the community roll with it.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Miller, do you have your right of reply?
Thank you, Worship. Very briefly, I agree with everything that Councillor Scott said, and Councillor Nicholson and Councillor Maidman. The community does want it, but they need a decision from council first about what we're going to do on that land. And I'm feeling very confident that we are getting very close to, and we don't need to have a very complicated plan. We can separate the discussions and make them individual, and the community will make these things work. So, yes, we just need to decide what we're doing out there. Thank you.
So that ends the discussion. So I'll put the motion to you. All those in favour? Against? That is carried unanimously. Item 9 is administration reports. 9.1 is the Middleton floods update. I'd ask Alan. Alan, do you have anything you wish to add to that report? Any updates on that?
Thank you, through the Mayor. Two things I'd like to update on that report. The first is something that I sent through, that has been sent through to you, which is an updated table. That table sits on page 41 of the agenda through to 43. The addition is to add in the allocated budgets that have been agreed or endorsed by council over the course of the last few months. I can go through that line by line, but if everyone has seen it and they're comfortable with it, then I'll move on to the second piece of updating. The second update is around a letter we received from the Minister for Infrastructure and Transport. That letter came in January or mid-January. Now, it wasn't included in this report because it wasn't directly connected to a letter we'd sent to the department. However, it reflects something that is important in this instance, is that the Minister has written back to us through the Mayor, through a conversation the Mayor had with the Minister late last year around the possibility of the Middleton bypass. And what the Minister has said is that it's moving further and further up the priorities in terms of state government, primarily around the growth that is shown within the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan. But that, along with that, comes opportunity for other things to occur, which include parts of what the hydrologist has spoken to us about, which is around detention of water upstream above the town and holding that water and throttling it before it comes down through the main through the main tributaries that come through there out to the sea. So I want to provide those two updates to you. I'm also happy to take any questions on those.
Thanks very much, Alan. Is there any questions for clarity that members may have? And I mean, therefore, clarity, not debate. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Worship. I just had a question around the data. So the looking at a new bomb weather station and the level gauge. What sort of additional data will they provide? So if you could refresh my memory, thank you.
Through the Mayor. As we've talked about before, currently there's only one weather station that's recording on a hourly basis, and that is not close to here in the location that's gone out of my head, but along this seaboard, they're only recording on a daily basis, which meant that when we came to do the work around working out the type of event that occurred there, it became quite challenging to do so because we didn't have the hourly figures in hand, because that was the deluge that came within a space of 3 to 4 hours. So that's about introducing along this coastline a capability to formally collect verified and validated information on an hourly basis. The gauge was something that we've talked to other people about, particularly the SES, and the possibility of having infrastructure further upstream, which provides us with some better data on levels of water at the time. And the SES have produced modelling around what information they have, which is live, and so that information could be pulled into their assessments, and it means that there would be some level of warning if I was to have again, or at least to allow us to, they would see a trend and it would trigger some kind of response.
So there's a recommendation that we receive a note, the flood update report. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Livingston. Any discussion? No discussion. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I did just want to comment that it is great to have an update on these initiatives throughout Middleton following the flood in 2022. This is something that we all know the community is very keen to hear about. They're following this very closely in Middleton because of the impact that it had and continues to have on a number of businesses and residents in Middleton. The event was quick, but it's had really a long-lasting impact, and I know that there are many areas around Alexandrina that we have to consider looking into actions in relation to stormwater and flooding. Middleton is one of them, so it's really great to have this update and a lot of information to digest, but thank you.
Any further? Councillor Scott.
Just very quickly, I think mainly what I need to talk about is the next 9.2, but I am concerned at the length of time that this is all taking, and I might have missed something, but we moved something a few months ago, and I thought the report was in the process of being developed, and now I see that we're only going to tender for the report in February, and that concerns me a bit. I appreciate it's technical, and the more you look at Middleton, the worse it becomes, because there are all sorts of factors, competing factors, and the whole lot funnels down to Middleton. I appreciate that, but I just think that I'm sure the Middleton people were hoping that there would be something more concrete a bit sooner than it is now, and I guess that's what I'm voicing, and I'll have more to say under 9.2 in a minute. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Maidment, did you wish to speak? No. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Come to item 9.2, which was the Middleton Stormwater Management Plan. Is there anything you need to add to that, Alan? Or update on? No. So are there any questions for clarity again? Clarity? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Worship. On page 46, I just wanted to ask about the Stormwater Management Plan. There's just a point that says that upon Stormwater Management Plan approval by the Stormwater Management Authority, up to 50% contribution grant funding is available for the development of the stormwater management plan. And I just felt that that seemed a little bit backwards. So is that like you can retrospectively apply for funding for your plan once you've submitted the plan?
Through the Mayor, that probably doesn't quite convey what it should, in that Category A applications, as reads below, include stormwater management plans and other studies. What that's saying is that once a technical assessment that we would be proposing to do in any single case was done, then we'll be able to apply to them, giving them the general geographic area that we'll be covering, more information about what we'd be looking for, timeframes, costings, and then we could then apply for grant funding to actually get the full stormwater management plan up and running. So it's around the cost of those things, given that within this report you see the large cost associated with the stormwater management plan, and that authority understand that, but still need an application process to be gone through, which includes us providing certain information.
Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. So just to clarify, so upon stormwater management plan approval is sort of like a bare bones kind of application, and then you could get funding to fill it in, the actual complete plan. Is that correct?
Yes.
Councillor Coomans.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parkes. I've got a couple of questions, if I could. One is, it talks about broadening the project to include Brown Hill and the Port Elliot catchment areas. What sort of effects is that going to have in terms of timing of the outcomes compared to just focusing on the Middleton, whose community has been fairly much affected by that 12th of November storm event? Will it have an impact on getting things done?
Through the Mayor, when we're talking about stormwater management plans, we're talking about a multi-year process. So we're not talking about something that's going to happen very quickly. The bringing forward a stormwater management plan is a massive undertaking, and within the report it provides information on the stages we have to go through to get one up and running and then formally approved by the authority to then be able to apply for grants and other bits and pieces to help us with the infrastructure or anything else that has been recommended by that plan. So to answer your question, yes, it's going to add a bit more time because there's more data to pull in, there's more information to gather, and there'll be more assessment that will be required. But I just want to make the point that it's a long-term process in itself.
And the second question I had was in relation to the heavy transport bypass. What effect would that have on this particular project in terms of, because it does include elements of flood mitigation at the same time? Will that impact on this particular report as well?
Through the Mayor, no. This looks at the current situation as it stands and then puts forward a holistic set of recommendations for the entire catchment. So what's been provided so far from a hydraulics perspective has been a very, very specific focus on one aspect, and this is to broaden that view across the wider catchment, which we, when talking to the community, completely accept that there was stuff coming in from all over the place, and the catchment's much broader than just the stream that's coming in at that point. So, and I've just completely lost my train of thought. Can you just remind me of the question, please, Councillor?
Yeah, it's just the effect, if the heavy transport bypass route was to be included, and it has flood mitigation, well, hopefully it has flood mitigation elements in it as well, will that impact on this report?
So through the Mayor, there is not that level of detail as far as we're aware from a state government perspective. They're simply looking at a broader freight and transport study which pulls in information from each of the LGA associations, including Southern Hills, and their own transport strategies around freight, tourism, and other bits as well. So they're simply looking at the moment at how this all connects up and what sort of priorities are going to be where. What the Mayor has spoken to the Minister about is the opportunity that if that comes across the back of Middleton, there is then an opportunity to talk to him about what other ancillary infrastructure can go in to assist in this particularly, noting that hydrologists, and we understand that too, that throttling that water source coming down is going to be a much better option than trying to enlarge things closer to the town or even through the town.
Any other questions for clarity?
Thank you. So this, the recommendation of a review, $20,000 for a district-wide Alexandrina Stormwater Management Plan review, would that be the bones of a stormwater management plan that we would then submit to the SMA to look at grant funding to develop an actual stormwater management plan?
Through the Mayor, no, it wouldn't. It would not. The view we're taking is that despite the genuine impacts that occurred in Middleton, that we have talked with people about and fully appreciate and understand, there are other communities within the district that have also suffered in terms of flooding. And what we're saying there is that this would provide council with a complete picture across the district of where those problems are, and also for them to give you information about how you then prioritise moving forward. And those communities also know that they've also been considered as part of this.
Councillor Miller?
Thank you, Worship. Just a question, I guess, is the status of, this is a review of an existing stormwater management plan that we already have. So that when we use the word review, what is that? Can I just get clarity on that? Because then I have another subsequent question.
Yep, through the Mayor. So it's reviewing what information we have currently available to us at the moment, and also reviewing data that a specialist can get their hands on that's readily available across the district. So we have a number of reports from other parts of the district. Ashbourne is an example as well, where we have other issues occurring around flooding, and it's a review of all that information to bring back what we'd regard as which would be a holistic view across the district of those flooding issues.
Actually, I think mine is more debate, so I'll wait. And
Councillor Scott.
Sorry, I've lost the fox altogether now. Are we on clarity or are we on general discussion? Sorry, I'll wait for general discussion. Thank you.
Another one, Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Worship. It's a very important report here. So just seeking clarity on a potential limitation. Would the fact that Middleton currently has limited data collection for that specific area be a limitation in representing that area in this review that we are potentially going to invest $20,000 to do?
Through the Mayor, it would be the same for any other part of the district. There are certain aspects that we are aware of in terms of that we have a hydrology report, for instance, for Middleton. We also have reporting for Ashbourne, and there's data that we have in other places as well that we would bring together. But what a specialist consultant would do is pull information they have available to them as well and bring that into the mix as far as that reporting. It wouldn't just solely rely on what we provide.
Councillor Kim has another question.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Park. Look, I just need to ask this. When you're looking at reviewing the current information, I'm assuming one of those would be the hydrologist report on Middleton, and I'm assuming that admin are aware that that report fell rather short in terms of the boundary of where the flooding occurred, and I'm assuming that you'll take that on board from local information.
Through the Mayor, as I spoke about just a few moments ago, we acknowledge that. And we acknowledge that the need for a stormwater management plan would be on a much broader geographic area. So we understand that the hydrology report itself focused on an aspect of the flooding, and we understand from the communications and the conversations we've had with the community that it was a much broader impact, and the stormwater management plan would take that into consideration. What's been advised here is that still, from a stormwater management plan perspective, given the amount of money that would be spent on such a thing, is still quite narrow in focus and could be improved and broadened to make it even more attractive in terms of first getting that funding to do that plan, and then if that plan was then endorsed and improved by the authority, to get further work done on it.
So I think we're probably about ready to look at the recommendation and seek a mover. Is there a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Oliver. And did you wish to speak to it? No. Is there a seconder? Nobody going to second it? Councillor Miller? Is any discussion? Councillor Peake, yep.
Thank you, Worship. I think this is a sensible approach. It's a measured approach, and if the Stormwater Management Authority is telling us what they need from us for us to secure significant funding for what will be a significant body of work, I think we do need to listen to that. And as I do think it also that we can't underestimate the size of developing these plans. I do think we have a role to do this. That's, at the end of the day, what local government is there for. It's about these sorts of, unsexy, if you like, projects that you don't necessarily see and you only notice when they fail or we don't have them. I think that this highlights for me the importance of getting our strategic infrastructure asset management plan sorted, and then the underlying asset management plans that will feed into that. This is a particular asset class that is going to require a big focus, and I'm looking forward to how all of these moving parts align when it comes to how we manage our assets, and stormwater is a significant one of those. So I'm happy to support this as it currently stands, because I do believe that we can't look at it in isolation, that little area. I think Middleton and broader is probably the way to go, and have a district-wide stormwater management plan, which I think will actually be of more benefit to getting successful strategic long-term outcomes for the Middleton area by taking this approach. And especially in light of the Middleton bypass discussions, that was a really interesting update to receive, and that's promising that, I guess that's one side of growth that will bring infrastructure and things like that. So as much as I would like to see a Middleton stormwater management plan progressed, I think doing it as a holistic approach is a sensible and pragmatic way to go about maximising the money that will be needed to go into this project. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Councillor Gardner.
I want to support this motion, but in doing so, I think we need to recognise the Middleton residents' response to the flood in 22, But also they differ, or that community differs very much so to the Ashbourne residents who suffered as much and have suffered numerous times, with many people being flooded, goodness knows how many times. So in saying that, I wonder how we can ensure that the Middleton people in particular, but also the Ashbourne people, and I know there were people in Strath who also affected, but particularly the Middleton residents, that they're not being ignored and they're not being put aside. I'm not sure how staff do that, but I think it's important to recognise that they have been quite strident in their criticism of council's response to the flood. I just don't want them to go away thinking that council does not care, and so they're just going to do, you know, an Alexandrina stormwater management plan. Does that make sense?
Through the Mayor, if I could add to that, there are other components of those recommendations that will continue to move forward. So in there, you've got the specific work on Flagstaff Hill and the specific work on Mill Terrace, and we will continue to work with the Landscapes Board and with the Department of Infrastructure, regardless of us moving forward with the review to come back around stormwater management across the district. So this does not stop anything else from moving forward. We will still be moving forward on all of those other items.
Councillor Scott.
Oh boy, this has got many facets to it, and I take on board, certainly there are other areas recognise that were flooded, but we're talking about not going ahead with a Middleton stormwater management plan. 2 years and 3 months now we're into since that night. And I just revert back to the previous paragraph or previous page where it says that one of the things we do, we approve the General Manager to write to Steam Ranger and request increased number of stormwater pipes and culverts. Oh, it's been completed, that's good. We haven't got a reply yet, only a verbal one. 2.25 years in, and those culverts in Mill Terrace are a disgrace. Now, I can't wrap cotton wool around it anymore. They are a disgrace. And any person, Alan Harvey is perfectly qualified to see that there and say, that's not going to work. Now, what we need to do is to get the government and Steam Ranger, whoever, that has to happen as a matter of urgency. The top of Cut Hill, of the Crow's Nest, may get only a light shower. But if there's a cloudburst over Middleton, as there could easily be, it's easy to have a cloudburst in a town and then nothing further away or very little, and they get 2 inches over Middleton, Mill Terrace will flood again. There will be 200,000 litres of water trying to get out there after a quick sudden summer storm or even a winter storm, whatever, especially if it doesn't matter whether the ground's wet or not because it's a paved area. And there are these people, and give them their due. They're sitting there and there's this time bomb in front of them where water's expected to almost run uphill. There's a box culvert not much bigger than the screen on my laptop where the water's supposed to traverse through to go under a railway culvert that's got about that much clearance in it. Now, I mean, what do you expect? What are we expecting? The Middleton people in Mill Terrace and nearby, doctor's surgery, got all their stuff flooded. They want that water to get away from Mill Terrace. Open it up and get it out. Here we are, 2.25 years, and we're waiting for a written response from either Steam Ranger, who don't own the land, or the Department of the Environment. And I'm sympathetic to them. I know there has been all sorts of comment made by the Middleton people, but I think that it's not unreasonable that they see something more tangible than just some plans. And by putting that off and waiting for an even bigger plan, now just remember that in 92, that area around the Gap Bridge was flooded. There was a whole lot of work done by the Gap Bridge there at the bottom end of that area where it comes down from through Lindsay Campbell's old place. That big drain's been made. So we're going to wait for a whole plan right across Alexandrina. Alexandrina goes out and takes in, the creeks right out near Callington. This is a problem right now. And, I just think I'd like to see number 3 in there, or number 2 altered, so we say that we don't progress a development of stormwater plan, that at least we continue with it and look at the integration of it into a management plan, but don't say we don't progress it. My goodness. But in number 3, that we actively pursue low-level mitigation actions or actions that will help in the short term. And if we don't get another big one, but we get a reasonable sized one, and it's not unusual to have a couple of it at least 1.5 to 2 inches in one night, and can happen very quickly. And I've seen it there, water pouring off the hills. At least they can say, oh look, we've at least got the culverts cleaned out, and bigger culverts, the water can get away, at least for a start, while we work on a big plan. $500,000 for the big plan, remember? Not sure where that's coming from. And we can have this key stuff done. And it might only be Middleton. There may be other towns where that simple key infrastructure alteration, which needn't necessarily cost. I'll mention another one. We've got little pipes like this under Airport Road that takes all the water, 200 or 300 acres of catchment, down heading towards Goolwa. So it blocks up, the water goes over the road, so Alan Pomeroy has to go out and stand there with a flag because there's a whole lot of, because of the traffic situation. I realise the time's up, but that's the importance of it. I'd like number 3 to be that we pursue, if I may add to it, pursue low-level and strategic infrastructure alterations to at least mitigate some of the obvious problems, if I may.
Through the Mayor, to reiterate what I said to Councillor Gardner, the other aspects of those recommendations continue to move forward regardless of this particular matter. The Stormwater Management Plan is about a much broader catchment and work that could be done within that catchment. Within the town itself, we still have active projects running along Mill Terrace and Flagstaff Field. Those 2 things that you've spoken about, we understand those situations, but need to come up with a plan which is going to deal with the problem completely and not just do bits of it in the hope that it might work. So it's important to us, as it is to that community, that when we do it, and when we do it right, and we fix that entire... take Mill Terrace, for instance, just to talk about that very quickly. Yes, there are culverts that run under Steam Ranger, but up above that, as you quite rightly said, as you know, and we experienced when we... third hand when we were talking to the community, was that whole surgery at the top flooded out. Now, one of the reasons for that is because they pump their water from the middle of their car park up to the main road, because there's no curb and gutter to pump into Mill Terrace. We need the entire infrastructure in place to make that work, not just to switch out the culverts. So that's what we're moving forward on and will continue to work on, regardless of this.
Is there any further? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Worship. Look, at this stage, I don't feel confident supporting this motion, and I'd just like to explain why. So for number 2, not progressing the development of a Middleton Stormwater Management Plan, to me is something that we have been working towards. We spent $80,000 on a hydrologist report. We spent money on a consultant to deliver this to us. And we know that, yes, while other areas of our community flood more frequently, This was a really severe flood with 80 properties, including the GP practice, that was impacted. It had such a significant impact and ongoing impact on the community of Middleton. And we have already taken so many steps to assure this community that this council is here to work on strategies that will mitigate some of these impacts in the future. We know that we've got some big projects that need doing in Middleton that would benefit from the capital works grants that a stormwater management plan would give us the opportunity to apply for. Projects that are so highly technical that we require a specialist to even put the tender specifications together. So I just feel that we would benefit from a Middleton stormwater management plan, but if we're not going to go that way, going back to point number one, I remain unconvinced that we need to spend another $20,000 just to select a priority area for a stormwater management plan in Alexandrina. Surely this council has enough experience and knowledge of our communities to know if we're not going to go to Middleton, where we would go to next. We've got the stormwater management planning priorities for South Australia. We know the areas that frequently flood. We hear from our communities. I just don't feel convinced at this stage that it's a benefit. This is a $20,000 decision that we're potentially making. We're putting into the budget, and I'm glad that we get another go considering this in the budget. But I just don't feel convinced at this stage. So unfortunately, I can't support it tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Crimmins.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parkes. Look, I echo the comments that Councillor Scott and Councillor Nicholson have said. I'm sort of two minds. We probably need, I think we do need a broader plan that encapsulates the whole area. That's a good thing. But what we've been working on up till now is to do something about the Middleton stormwater issues. And you've mention's been made of there has been some work and it will continue. I'd like to encapsulate that in this motion somehow or other, that sort of work's going to be continuing. And if the movement second aren't prepared to change it, then I think we should be foreshadowing some change to ensure that the Middleton is where this all started, where the big issue is on flooding, that we actually continue to take active action to mitigate to the extent possible, and then it forms part of the stormwater management plan for the whole area. I'll leave it at that. At this stage, I won't support this one.
I think we need to talk about, for 3 minutes, about our conversations with the Minister. So we discussed the Middleton bypass and the stormwater issues in Middleton. And we've done, as you know, Council funded a hydrologist report. We had a look at it. And the government have done their own report since then. So they've done a second hydrologist report on the area, and they want us to look at lots of things, not just Middleton. The South Coast Freight Corridor definitely is proposed to take in Airport Road and go across the back of Middleton and bypass Middleton and joins up somewhere. There's a number of spots on Waterport Road. And it goes to Cape Jervis, and as soon as the new ferries get in, the demand for that road increases enormously. So the Minister has that project top of mind. You've got to understand how many road projects they've got on the way on the go in South Australia at the moment, including South Road. So, but it's right up there. The understanding is that bypass road would incorporate a means of directing water from above Flagstaff Hill Road, down that road, into a storm, and down from the valleys behind, into a stormwater mitigation project, which would then be able to control the flow of water in a major rain event, would control the flow of water down the creek at a rate which the culvert under the Port Elliot Road can handle. Bearing in mind also, we've got infrastructure downstream of that, which gets wrecked every time we have a flood as well. So there's more to it than just, just that bit of that little bit of pipe there. So they really are right onto it. It's in the system. It's in the books to be done. He was fully aware of the problems and fully understood and responded. We got two responses, one to do with the road and one to do with the stormwater. And so it's in there. It's just a matter of us. We're not saying we're not going to do it. We're just saying we've already started reviewing our 25-26 business plan. So we're only 3 months away from adopting it. So it's a matter of looking at it in this discussion and making sure we make appropriate allocation of funds to cover it. In the meantime, we've got to keep working with the government on getting the money. And not this year, but next year there'll be a state government election, and there's a federal government election coming up, and things like the Southern Freight Corridor are things which will require significant federal funding, and they're on the list of what we need for this region. So there's a lot of work being done on it, but unfortunately it's not going to happen overnight, But we're not. I don't believe this motion says forget it. I think far from it. It says let's look at it in our deliberations that we're doing now and see what we do need to do. Maybe 20,000 won't be enough. We need to maybe to put more in, but we've got to think about it and look at it. And it's definitely top of mind priority as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, and I know Alan is very much involved with it. So anyway, I just thought I'd give you an update on where we've been with that. So, Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. I'm just wondering whether it would be possible with the approval of the mover and seconder to add a third point to the effect that the council write to the Middleton community and provide an update on actions taken in relation to the mitigation measures set out in agenda item 9.1 and assure the community that in expanding the scope of the stormwater management plan, it will not impact the other actions being undertaken. To that effect. Sorry. Sorry. With the Middleton community and provide an update on actions taken in relation to the mitigation measures set out in agenda item 9.1 and assure the community that in expanding the scope of the stormwater management plan, there will be no impact to other actions being undertaken. Happy for that to be tweaked. The only other change that I would ask is that rather than the wording "do not progress," that happy to take suggestion that we consider expanding the scope of the stormwater management plan.
You can't change the intent without it being a new motion. You can add the third point, but you can't change part two. Councillor Oliver, Councillor Miller, happy to take that additional point? Yep, that's okay. So yes, that can stay in there. Yep, we can add that.
So the movement sector are happy with the variance.
So now we've got the variation. The movement seconder are happy. We just need the chamber, leave of the chamber to accept that. All those in favour of that? Against? So who's against? So it's carried. So it can stay in.
Can I ask a question? Just in relation to changing the intent of point 2 with changing the wording, my interpretation of if we're considering an Alexandrina stormwater management plan, we're not proceeding with Middleton. And I know it might be technical, but I think it would alleviate the concern of the Middleton community if there can be some similar wording, but to the effect that we're expanding the scope of the Middleton stormwater management plan to incorporate the wider catchment.
Yeah, through the chair, I think Councillor Livingston is wanting to change just that wording, do not progress, to something that will not be an opposite to what's there now by way of that motion, but still achieves. So it's about looking to remove those words, do not progress, but perhaps to develop the Middleton stormwater management plan pending consideration of the... So you can just remove those first 3 words. Alan?
Through the Mayor, just to advise that the funding we have available to us to this point has been expended on that initial assessment. Sorry, the funding that's been provided to us to this point has been expended on that initial assessment, which is the bulk of the information that's in the report that came from the specialist consultant, to give us the idea about what the value of that work would be and the scope of that work. We don't have funding yet available to us to progress the stormwater management plan. So we would be considering both things. If we took those both into the budget process, we would be considering 2 separate projects. One would be the Middleton Stormwater Management Plan, and the other would be the review of stormwater management across the district.
And in essence, and that's still achieving the same thing, if we're considering a wider, if we don't currently have the funding right now to do the Middleton Stormwater Management Plan, and it would be having to go to the budget process anyway, we can consider Middleton Stormwater Management Plan, wider Alexandrina Stormwater Management Plan at that point in time. If we have to, won't we be having to do that anyway?
Through the Mayor, absolutely you would. I'm just pointing out that we're not progressing this any further at the moment until we go through that process of getting that funding in place for either of those 2 things, or both of them. But we don't have that in place at the moment.
Yep, I appreciate that.
Okay.
So again, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Miller, happy with that little change? Yep, it's everybody else happy with that, in favour? Just a moment, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Miller, you happy with removing? Councillor Scott, can I do one thing at a time? Councillor Miller and Councillor Oliver, are you happy with that? Those 3 words being taken out? No?
No, I prefer it to stay.
Prefer it to stay. So it stays in?
Because I think I don't see the difference. I think it's going to take up all the actions that have been specified.
It doesn't really change anything because it's part of the business plan. Councillor Scott, you've already spoken to it?
Well, I did.
You've already spoken to it. So that's the...
Well, I'm asking a question. I asked before if I could add one of them was to remove that and put integrate, that the thing is integrated into the stormwater management plan, so that it looks as though it's going to be part of it. Because I don't even realise the implications of putting do not progress.
Can we have this the question? Councillor Scott, can we have just the question, please? And can you please turn your microphone on? I just want a question, not a debate.
The question is, can we add, I wanted 3, 3's been partly done, 4, that council pursue or continue with low-level flood mitigation works.
You've already spoken to it. You're not asking a question. You're starting to add another
Well, I've asked if I could add it. I asked before.
No.
Councillor Livingston asked for some, got it in. Why am I being rejected?
Councillor Scott, you've already spoken to it. I'm not arguing with you about it. You've already spoken to it. Is there any further discussion from anybody that hasn't spoken? Councillor Coombs, a question.
Just a question. I'm just concerned about those 3 words, do not progress. And Councillor Scott did mention integrate. Is that something that's probably halfway without making the whole thing negative to what the original motion was? If you want to put integrate, you want Councillor Oliver and Councillor Miller happy with that?
Foreshadow another motion.
You happy with that, Councillor Miller? Just put integrate. Yep.
May I just ask a question?
Yep.
My understanding, or just some clarification, my understanding of what we're doing here is where consideration of the Middleton Stormwater Management Plan is pending a broader stormwater management plan, because we may not need a specific Middleton plan, or we may, but we don't know that yet. We could spend lots of money doing a Middleton stormwater plan only to then discover in the broader context we didn't actually need one, because what we're going to do more broadly will mitigate all the risks. And it's not as if we're doing nothing. We just noted, so I just want to clarify, this is not, Councillor Livingston's interpreted it as...
we need a question, that's
the
all.
question is, my interpretation is different to Councillor Livingston's, which is the only reason why I'm not changing it. That's all.
Through the Mayor, just so it's very clear, the Alexandrina Stormwater Management Plan review, as stated in there, is not a stormwater management plan. It will be a review of data that we have available to us and that can be accessed through the Department of Environment and Water and other places to bring together across the district all the impacted areas that we have with regards to stormwater management, and then bring that back as a report to give some more information around the priorities across the district. It is not a stormwater management plan, so it will not do the same thing as doing a Middleton stormwater management plan.
Is there any further discussion? No, so Councillor... So, Councillor Oliver, do you wish to use your right of reply to this? A question?
Do we have funding before the budget process to do the Middleton Stormwater Management Plan?
Through the Mayor, as the recommendation seeks here, it would go no. That would be taken through the annual business plan and budget process for 25-26.
Take this motion out of it. Do we currently have funding to do the management plan?
No, it's not one of our projects.
Okay. Can I speak, because I haven't spoken? Or is it me changing that?
I think you have
Speaking?
spoken.
Okay.
You have spoken. I wouldn't push it. Is it, Councillor Oliver, do you wish to use your
One
right
question, Mayor, if
Councillor Coombs, question.
Yeah. Have you taken on board that there is a foreshadowed motion in this mix? Okay, we have spoken about a foreshadowed motion.
So there is a foreshadowed motion. Okay, that's fine. Sorry. in all that was going on. That's gone past me. So, Councillor Oliver, do you wish to use your right of reply? So that ends the discussion. So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? So it is carried. (9.3) is Terrace, Middleton, a footpath expansion. There's a recommendation with 2 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Coomans. Is there a seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion?
Thank you, Mayor. I was really disappointed when we didn't go ahead with the Billabong Road Path project, and I've recently been talking to residents of Galway who tell me overwhelmingly that footpaths are very important to them. But I know that this footpath on Mill Terrace in Middleton is also a very high priority for residents of Middleton. So I am glad at this reallocation of the funding that we all had approved in our budget for this year to go to the Billabong Road footpath project to be allocated to the Mill Terrace footpath. I am happy with that, and I will support this. I'm glad that this project will happen with that funding. I do hope to raise the Billabong Road footpath project again in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Gardner.
Question, Your Worship. Will the 62,000 be an adequate amount to complete the Mill Terrace footpath?
Through the Mayor, I have been advised yes.
Is there any further discussion on this? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 9.4 is delivering the A2040 6-monthly progress report. There's a recommendation that we receive and note that report. Move Councillor Miller. Second, Councillor Maidment. Is there any discussion or later, Councillor Maidment?
Yeah, I have several questions. For clarity, it says in that report that street trees are watered every 2 weeks over this summer period, and I know we can't do much about the weather, but the trees around Strathalbyn are looking very tired. So is this actually happening? Because I have anecdotal evidence that the trees within this Strathalbyn Oval complex, we haven't seen a truck in there all summer.
Through the Mayor, yeah, that tree watering program is running as per the service level, but I'll take your particular point on board and come back to you.
The truck goes out of here every morning. I see it on my way to work.
And it's challenging, I appreciate that. Another thing in this report, it says that, and this is for General Manager Infrastructure, you're upgrading BMX tracks at Galway and Mount Compass, and you're asking professionals to have a look at them. That's great, fantastic. What are you doing about the Strathalbyn BMX track?
So through the Mayor, both those projects were part of our renewal and upgrade capital program. So if there is work to be done in terms of, or from a community perspective, work to be done in terms of the Strathalbyn one, that is something to be brought up through the annual business plan and budget process.
Any further discussion? Councillor Miller, you'll close the discussion, that's all. A question?
Well, I didn't get to speak, so...
Yeah, but you have to speak. You have to wait now until the end, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion? Councillor Maiden, again.
General Manager Wellbeing's gone out of the room, but someone else might be able to answer this. Youth programs are very prominent in Mount Compass, Malang and Galway. There's nothing for Strathalbyn. And is this, am I going to get a similar answer that we need to raise this in the budget process? It's interesting to note that 50% of the population in Strathalbyn is under 40, so I think youth programs in that area would be a great initiative. But she can take that on notice and I'll get back to me if you like.
Is any... we'll see if anybody else wants to speak. Is there anybody else wish to speak to this? So, Councillor Miller, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Worship. I love this report. It'd be fabulous if we had it quarterly, though. There are so many good news stories in here. I note that a couple of years ago it was annually and well after the year had ended, so we're getting there so far as reporting to our community. I love the spirit of continuous improvement when it comes to reporting to our community. Administration is currently reviewing our strategic plan and the way we report on both the plan and our annual business plan, so it's likely future performance reporting will be provided in a different way. This report is about managing expectations as much as it is about reporting. I do have quite a few questions about some of the initiatives along a similar vein to Councillor Maidment, but I'll send them separately to administration and not take up valuable time here. But except to say that this is reflecting on what's been done. It doesn't speak to what's coming. So I'm looking forward to seeing the next iteration of this report. But it is a wonderful way to have really meaningful conversations with our community. It says so much about the depth and breadth of what councils do and trying to meet the needs of everyone within a limited resources. It talks about our service levels and the conversations that we need to have with our community. The only question I guess I have is when are we going to get the South Coast Growth Strategy endorsed so that it's dealt with and we know where we're going with that? That's probably the only question that I have that's of any significance tonight. Thank you.
So that would have been a good question without notice, but we'll organise a workshop and then it'll come to council for endorsement, and so we have the draft one sitting there at the moment. So that closes the discussion. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. Yeah. So 9.5 is Grants and Contributions Program, the mid-year report. Stacey, do you have anything to add to that for clarity? Are there any questions for clarity? Councillor Maidment.
Question for the General Manager Wellbeing. In the Oval Contributions Program, there's 36,750, as stated in this report. There are 6 ovals that can tap into that. Does that mean that this amount is being indexed every year, or is this just something that's just been added because previously those ovals were getting a contribution of $5,000?
Through the Mayor, I'd have to double check that, but it must have been indexed because I believe it was at 5,000 for, yes, quite a few years, so it must have been indexed this year, but I can take it on notice to get the accurate answer for you. Yep.
Any other questions, Councillor? Anybody? So do we have a mover, Councillor Miller? Thank you.
Yes, I'd like to move it and add a sentence, if I may, just picking up on that the Finnis Cricket Club is unlikely to take up their current allocation, which is $2,625. I just wanted to add that if they don't take that up, that gets divvied up equally between the other oval users. So it will either be, and I note that Mount Compass has 2 ovals, and usually this allocation, if I understand it correctly, about oval contributions is based on winter use and summer use. I think that the amount varies slightly if it's used all year round to then if it's just used in the summer, which is why it's only 2,625 for Finnis, because that was only ever used in the summer. So I'm just asking that contribution, if they don't take it up, gets divided, and it's either $437.50 if there's only 6, but it's $375 if you give 2 lots to Mount Compass because they've got 2 ovals there. So I just don't want that money not to be allocated. It's budgeted. So as long as those groups submit their request, which is the process they've followed for years, that we actually give them a little top up with this money that's not going to Finnis and it's still going to ovals, to these amazing community groups that are so important to the community wellbeing. And I also have a question about the $15,000 that are going to Scott's. So that's a question after I've moved, I guess. Sorry? So my question is, that $15,000 is required, there's no doubt about it, because when we did the budget we didn't know that that $15,000 was going to be needed. So my question is, does Victor Harbour also have to contribute more, or is it just our share that we have to contribute more towards? And I also look forward to a report about where that future of those transport options are going, because I know there's going to be significant change there. Thank you.
Through the Mayor, I believe all of the councils involved in the Southern Communities Transport Scheme did need to add in more information, but I can also make sure I get the accurate information and send that through, but I believe we all had to.
So do we have a seconder? So that's Oliver. Is there any further discussion?
Just my final comment is that I love this report. It is another good news story. It's a great conversation to have with our community, and the reporting on this I love, because we never used to receive this report, and it's so good to show just how much support council does give. These are, in the scheme of things, little amounts, but they make such a difference, and they are either seed funding, or they keep people going, or they just give motivation and really good spirit. So thank you so much for providing this mid-year report, and I just think it's amazing. Thank you.
So I'll put the recommendation to you. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.6 is the Lot 10 Langhorne Creek Road Project Steering Group Committee, Terms of Reference Review. We'll do 1 to 3 first and then do 4. Sorry, yeah, we'll do 1 to 3 first, then do 4 and 5. But Tash, did you wish to give us anything on it new, fresh? No? Are there any questions of clarification? Councillor Coombe.
Rather than 1, 2 and 3, could I ask 1 and 2 together, but 3 and 4 separately?
Any questions for clarity? Councillor Miller.
I actually have a question around the reference to council members, and I think it was in this one. If we just, in future, we don't say ward council, I think we shouldn't be restricted by what groups we can go on just because of the ward we're in. So I know that this one has ward councillors particularly, but in future I'd like to see, that it's not restricted initially by geography and then determine, because if there's no committees in your ward or anything in your ward, you kind of get left out of the decision making. So that was my question, I guess.
Through the Mayor, that can certainly be adjusted. So when we get to the item, when we are doing the terms of reference, so item 3.3, if there's any changes you want to the terms of reference, whoever moves it might like to suggest that if they want it changed to just council members and not ward councillors, that could be done at that point. It would need to be done within the terms of reference as well.
Any further questions? No. So they're proposing to do 1, 2 and 3 first, or is there a mover for 1, 2 and 3? Councillor Coombs.
Mayor Park, I'd like to move 1 and 2.
Okay. And is there a seconder for 1 and 2? Councillor Oliver. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. So we can do 3 separately. Let me get organised here. Yep, I'm just getting there. So, Councillor Miller, you're moving 3?
Your Worship, I would like to move 3, 4 and 5 to, yeah, just, and I would like to I'm just trying to understand, so the terms, point 4 is, shouldn't we be establishing the terms of, so we're adopting the terms of reference and we're making a maximum of 3 ward council members, and I just think the appointment to the council, so if we're going to say the maximum of 3 ward councillors, do we need to call for nominations before we do part 4? Is that, I'm just confused about the wording of that.
Yeah, if I may, through the Mayor, we were suggesting to do 3 first, so you endorse your terms of reference, and then we could move into informal to seek nominations if for number 4, if you wish.
Then I'm happy to just move point 3.
Do we have a seconder for point 3? Councillor Livingston. Do you have any discussion on point 3, Councillor Kermans?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Parks. I guess the comments I wanted to make on this is that this is a steering committee, and really, I just wonder whether they've served their purpose as a steering committee, because I doubt if we're going to get anything new. And the steering committee has suffered quite a bit of, what's the word? Difficulties, probably a word, in that members have resigned and so forth. I just wonder whether it would be better to leave this as it is, don't have the a steering committee at all, and then once we decide on who's going to be the users of the Lot 10, that we establish a management committee that then looks at the management of the facility. In other words, be a representative of all of each of the user groups, and depending on whether the Strath Harness Racing Club is involved some way, maybe they have a member as well, because that whole area of Lot 10 is going to need some sort of management, or else there's going to be nothing but clashes between the various users at various times. So, and when you look at the users, we've got ones that we haven't considered. Oh, where am I? Is in the terms of reference, we don't mention anything about the Harness Racing Club or Camp Draft. Camp Draft probably should go to the Polar Grounds, and we haven't decided on that. The dog park group might want to have some sort of say in that area as well. They're talking about squash and racquetball, volleyball, athletics, tribal expertise facility, roller skating, pickleball, and if they all become users, and I know the next clause does say that it can be changed, but I'd rather we get this right from the start. Let's work out who's going to be using it, and then have a management committee looking after all, rather than the steering committee. I think the steering committee has probably served its purpose, and that's what I wanted to say about 3. So I oppose number 3 as it's written at the moment.
Is there any discussion further on number 3? No? So I'll put the recommendation to you. Okay, sorry.
Do I get to speak in closing the debate?
I was waiting. Sorry, yep, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. This is not a committee anymore, it's an advisory group. I couldn't disagree more with what Councillor Coomans has said. It's advisory. It is to get this site going. They won't need a management group because, and it's difficult because I can't talk about the information briefing session because that was in confidence. But what I can say is that we will never get this land activated if we tie all these groups together. All this is an advisory group of interested stakeholders. The only friction ever existed and I've been on this group for 2.5 years and observed before I became a council member, was when the Harness Racing Club was involved. This is not about the Harness Racing Club. It's not about who uses what part of the land. Well, it is, but what I'm saying is there are two separate conversations to be had, and this is an advisory group that deals with the parts of the land that doesn't involve a harness racing club. So this is chicken and egg stuff. These groups have all worked successfully together. There's no need for a management model. We have to give this group of people who've worked together successfully for 2.5 years or longer the ability to influence what that land looks like and all work together. So this is, I understood that we were not going to have a committee so that we could have this advisory group, and then we're not going to be able to have... I just get so frustrated with what's going on here. This is a group of stakeholders who have worked together very successfully and been caught up in administrative backwards and forwards, which is just honestly so frustrating. Let these people work together. Let these people work out how the land is going to be done. There's no harm in giving this advisory group some parameters. This is how they existed before, without the Harness Racing Club, who didn't want to be part of it. They still don't want to be part of it. As a group, please, can we just progress this and stop going round and round in circles and technicalities? This is a piece of land the community wants to activate and progress, and it's just getting interrupted, and we get so close and then we fall away. So I hope you will support these stakeholders being able to continue to talk to each other. And if you don't, well, they'll still talk to each other anyway, and they'll still come to council, and they'll still want to just... All they need is land, and they'll do the rest. They don't need a management model at this. That is not a conversation to be having now. And I hope that you will please help stop messing these people around, and let's just keep moving forward. Thank you.
Close the discussion on 3, so I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Councillor Oliver has apologised. He did have to leave early. He had something he had to get to. So we move now to dot point 4. So I guess the wording of it is, it says 3 North Ward council members. So if we're leaving it like that, there's no need to have a ballot because there's only 3. But if we're going to, if somebody wants to move it and change that, then that's up. Well, let's move. So, what have you, Councillor Cummins, you're itching to do something, so tell me what it is. We're not moving anything, just quickly tell me what it is.
Yeah. Look, I know there's been some difficulty with the North Ward councillors being part of this group. I think it's important that we have council members on it, and I would like to see 3. I'd like to give the North Ward councillors some priority, so my wording was going to suggest that it be 3 council members with a, what was the other one I had? 3 council members, a maximum of 3 council members with a priority for the North Ward councillors. So if any one of those doesn't to be a member, that someone else, maybe who's got some experience in setting up committees like this and establishing precincts and things, you know?
No, we're not going into a debate to tell you now. First thing I want to know is from the chamber, on all of you, are you all in favour of changing that before we start or not? So I want to know who's in favour and who's against.
Just a point of order, we need to, or council needs to determine where they're going with this. So the mayor is trying to understand, without moving per se, whether there's an appetite to leave it or change it, and if there is, then we'll need to seek leave of the meeting to do a ballot, or we simply place the 3 Northern Wards councillors members' names in this recommendation.
That's all we need to know now. There's no discussion, no questions. The question is very simple. You are in favour or you are against. You're in favour of having.
So I think someone. Sorry.
Councillor Curtins, do you wish to move that? Yes. Yes.
And I do, if I could just say a few words about it, I do so.
Hang on a moment.
Oh. Look, I do so because I think we need 3 elected members on this advisory committee, and I prefer to see someone who's got absolutely no conflict at all. There has been some issues with council members on there having some general conflicts, maybe even a material one, and I'd like to see someone on there who has got no bags to carry, no other irons in the fire, so to speak, and can look at it from a council perspective in a general way. So I'm suggesting, and it's already been mooted, that all 3 councillors won't be part of it, so there is room for another council member to be part of it, hopefully somebody who's totally independent to it all.
So that's all right. So what we'll do, the difficulty here is that there's no point putting your hand up because I'm not taking any motions, all right? So
Point of order, Your Worship.
I beg your pardon, I'm just explaining what we're going to do with the process. The problem we have here is we are trying to move something which is got, and the names aren't in there. So you can't move it without the names in there. So we have to establish who the people who are going to have their name. My thing's going off. We have to establish who the names of those members are who are going to be on the committee. So we can't move it until we've got those names. So, and this is why we're going off the track. So the recommendation now is what we will do is I'll seek leave the meeting to go out of... I'll seek leave, go out of the procedure and have an informal discussion about what you'd like to do and get a consensus on that. And we'll get a feeling on that, and we'll come back with where we want to go with. So, number one is everybody in favour in going into informal discussion on this matter? In favour? Those in favour? Against? Hang on, let's get everybody voting because, you know, there's 8 of you here and not 8 hands. So,
Apologies, Mayor. Of order, the terms of reference say North Ward councillors that we just approved.
we're talking about changing it. So before we change it, we ask you to leave it the chamber to discuss it before we put it. Because it's not been moved, it doesn't exist at the moment, it's a recommendation. So, this one's dying now. So, those in favour of going into informal to discuss the thing's dead, to discuss the changes. In favour? Against? Hang on. Those in favour? Against? So that is carried. So we'll go into informal. So now let's stick your hand, if those who wish to speak and see what we want to do. So Councillor Livingston.
I'm very confused. We've already adopted the terms of reference in the previous motion.
Yes, but the previous
How are we going back on that?
motion didn't mention the names of the elected members who are on the committee.
Yes, but the terms of reference say North Ward councillors only.
Tash, can you just put that out?
Through the chair, you have adopted the terms of reference. While you're informal, what I would suggest you do is that we follow our meeting procedures as far as seeking nominees for who might like to be on the committee, and you can discuss that informally, because do you know if you have more than 3 people interested? I'm not sure. So that could be something you can discuss while informal, and if there are multiple nominees, you can consider that when you come out.
And for terms of reference, they adjust things that they can see.
Yes, and I'm just looking at our manager governance at the moment. Should they want to adjust the terms of reference at this point in the meeting, would that be okay?
Through the Mayor, I'd suggest that if, as you said, as a result of the informal discussion, you identified a potential change, that you would split up the recommendation for you to have there to amend the clause 4.1.3 to be whatever it is that you want, get that resolved, and then the next one would be
good point.
into your recommendation.
Thank you.
See if this thing stays working. So, firstly, let's find out who wishes to nominate for this committee or advisory panel. Councillor Kermans. Anybody else? Councillor Miller and Councillor Thornton. Are there any others that would like to nominate?
I just want to explain something. I've got, as Councillor Kermans alluded, that I'm carrying too much baggage. I've got too many conflicts, so therefore it would be prudent of me not to go on that committee. So I'd be happy for someone else to take my place, so to speak.
So we've got 3 nominations at this stage. No others. Can you turn your microphone off, please? So if there are no more nominations, you nominating Councillor Scott?
Yes.
Yes. So now we have 4.
So what our process says that we would do is, while we're informal, that at the moment, our terms of reference have 3 places available within that current terms of reference. We would normally allow a short spiel from each person, say why they think they should, the council member to represent them, and then we would do a ballot process.
So now I'll go in order of nominations and ask you to say why you think so, Councillor Kermans. And we're talking about a short spiel, you know.
Yeah, look, it'll be short. I guess from my point of view, I think it needs somebody totally independent of all of the groups associated with it, be it the Harness Racing Club or the East Flurio School or the Agricultural Society, whatever. I don't have any connection with any of those groups or any of the others, and I think I'd like to. It's not. I want to travel to Strath every month or so, but I think it needs to be done because I'm concerned. I'm certainly concerned about the sorts of things that have the way things were conducted in that committee, and I think it needs somebody independent. And I'm not that I want to, but I think I need to nominate.
So, Councillor Miller.
I have a question, first of all, about what Councillor Coomans has just said, seeing as we are still in informal, I'm hoping. Councillor Coomans, I've never seen at a Lot 10 discussion. He's concerned about how things have been conducted throughout this group. Now, I would like some explanation as to what's been apart from the last kerfuffle over the committee for one meeting, I don't understand what his concerns are. And to say he's independent and not aligned with anyone will... I just don't I want to understand what that means.
But I think what we're asking here, we're asking for the reason why you should be on it, not why somebody else shouldn't be. So I'm sorry,
okay.
I need to...
No, all right, I'll talk about why I think I should be on it. Notwithstanding that we have a terms of reference that says up to 3 North Ward members, we haven't got any other... We're not in any position yet we haven't changed the terms of reference. So at the moment, we have a terms of reference that we just endorsed not 10 minutes ago that says up to a maximum of 3 Northwood members. So I wish to be one of those members according to the current terms of reference. I've been on that group for the last 2.5 years. I don't understand why now, when no one's been interested in this group, and there were 2 observers at the last meeting, that now everybody wants to be part of it. This has been going on for 2.5 years, and these groups have worked so well together. The Harness Racing Club are doing their own thing. Whoever wants to go with the Harness Racing Club, whoever, if we can talk about that, can do so of their own free will. This is now getting more complicated than it ever was when it was a committee. So I wish to be on this committee. In fact, you know what would be best? If there are no council members on it at all, and let the community groups drive it without any interference from council, and we have our say on when it comes to when they make recommendations to the administration. They're not even making recommendations to council, they're making recommendations to the CEO, if I understand what we just endorsed as being the terms of reference for this advisory group to advise the CEO. So I am really, really confused, and this gets just muddier and muddier, and it just drives the community insane. There's an agenda here, I think, I don't know, but something weird, very weird, is going on here. And I thought we had a motion that was moved, then we didn't get a seconder, and now we're coming back to this informal approach. So I don't know what's going on, and I'm really incredibly frustrated, and this is just making a mockery of a community that is desperate to have some decisions made, and we're just making it harder and harder for them to make decisions. So if we're going to have anybody on this, yes, I would like to be on it. I've been on it for 2.5 years. I intimately know what the groups want, including the Harness Racing Club, because I've been having conversations with them too. So I think I'm well across where this needs to be. And insofar as identifying, helping other council members identify their conflict of interest, well, that's up to council members to do. I think it's a little bit cheeky to imply that there are members in this room that have conflicts. It's up to them. And that's very cheeky and a bit out of order, I think. Thank you.
Councillor Thornton.
I love the community, and I'd love to see this up and running. I am a North Ward councillor, but I'm a councillor of Alexandrina, so I don't just speak for the North Ward, and I will have everyone's interest at heart being on this committee, which I've attended probably 3 meetings. I really want to make this happen and be a part of it.
Scott.
I obviously not a North Ward councillor, but I have watched from a distance. I think it's a fantastic project. I've been very interested in it. I have attended, I think 1, possibly 2 meetings over the time as an observer. I have a clear vision of how I think it should work, and I'm happy to contribute to that and those ideas, as I did earlier about the dog park, and would be happy to be involved.
So now what, we'll still retain informality and we will do a secret ballot. And so you just have to write 3 names on each paper, please. A question?
Writing 3 names, yes, but it also says maximum of 3. So if you didn't want a third, could you just write 2?
You can write 2, yeah. But, Councillor
I have
Miller?
a question. At the moment, the terms of reference say up to 3 North Ward members.
So-
At this point, Councillor Coomans is not a North Ward member.
Just a moment. If you listen to Lachlan when he spoke earlier, when we get the nominations and we put them in and we move this, it will include an amendment to the terms of reference. That's the way the governance manager has advised us to go about it.
Mayor Parkes, we've been going for more than 2 hours. Could I suggest we have a break?
Can we just finish what we're doing, if you don't mind? Thanks. I'd like to get this one finished. Finish this item first.
through the chair, this has probably been a little clunkier than what it needed to be, but essentially there's been, Councillor Coomans has moved a motion to basically change to include other ward councillors as well, and that was, if we can just see that for a second. So you can see there with a priority for the North Ward councillors, so the North Ward was removed. The difficulty we have is that's been moved, but we still need to be able to populate the names. So the Mayor has sought leave of the meeting to go into informal proceedings, which is what we've done. We've now conducted a ballot, and we have three members that have received the most votes, and that is Councillor Miller, Councillor Thornton and Councillor Scott. So those names will now be populated in the partly completed motion. Yeah. And further to that, consideration needs to be given to the terms of reference that were previously resolved. So an adjustment is required there to remove North Ward councillors so that that can be reflected in the terms of reference.
Can I ask a question, please? Are we still in informal or have we? So my question is, if this doesn't get seconded when we go back into, it's just lost?
If I may, through the Mayor, Councillor Coomans, what we've just done is we've left your motion as it was. We've populated the names given the informal ballot just given. What we have changed is rather than in relation to the terms of reference, because we're now amending them, we've just cleaned up wording to say that we're going to amend it with your wording that you had already moved before. So when the Mayor announces that we're going to come out of informal, where we'll pick it up is where we were, where we had Bill Coomans essentially move this motion, and he'll be seeking a seconder.
So we're right. So we'll move back now into formal meeting procedure. We have it moved by Councillor Coomans, so do we have a seconder? Councillor Thornton? Is there any discussion? Not, I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? That is carried. Now we go to item 5, so which is just authorising to make changes of a minor nature. Is there a mover for that? Move Councillor Coomans. Seconder, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion relating to that? Item 5, Councillor Miller.
I just have a question, and I'm seeking reassurance of when this group will meet, and if priority is going to be given to getting this group together sooner rather than later. Because if we need some direction here to get this group together straight away, then I'm happy to seek leave of the mover and the seconder to do that here, or foreshadow that I think this needs to be a priority to get this group together, be by electronic means or... But I just want a commitment that this is going to be prioritised, because I'm nervous.
Stacey will speak. It's already been done. Stacey will organise it. Thanks.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, Matt Atkinson sent an email to all the committee members today to stress that we need to get this done urgently. And I think he's already had a couple of replies. So we've tried to make it a priority, and we'll continue to work on that to get it done as soon as possible.
Just another question. This does not have to have been held before the special council meeting. Is that correct? Nothing turns on that?
through the chair, the intent would be to get the group together prior to the special council meeting. So we've sent out an email this afternoon to all of the steering group, the current committee members, advising them that this matter is coming before council tonight, and seeking details of who they would like to nominate should this motion get up, because we are mindful that we're on a very tight time frame and turnaround. So it looks like the initial meeting would either be Friday, probably more likely Monday or Tuesday, to provide the 3-day notice that we're required to in the new terms of reference.
Any question?
We rely on the groups to nominate via their secretary, who would be the delegate to this committee. Does it require the endorsement of council?
Through the Mayor, no, it does not. It's delegated authority in the terms of reference to the Chief Executive Officer to then appoint them.
Is any further discussion on this item? No. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Anybody against? That's carried unanimously. Yeah. Yes, if we seek. Do you want to have a 5-minute break? Hands up if you do, or we'll keep going. I'm happy to keep on going. It's getting late. Keep moving. Yep, we'll carry on. So 9.7 is Delegations update for June to November 2024, and there's a recommendation there before you, 2 dot points. Is there a mover? Move, Councillor Gardner. A seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. (9.8) is the confidential order review of various items, and there's a recommendation there with 2 dot points. Is there a mover for that? Councillor Nicholson. Is any discussion on that? I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? And Councillor Scott, are you in favour? Can you please? Anybody against? It's carried unanimously.
Just to remember an update, something further to add from me. Questions have got to be.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. 9.9 is the Chief Executive Officer's report. And so, Andrew, have you got anything to add or update?
Through the Chair, just to bring to Council members' attention that on the 9th of January I met with Councillor Bill Coomans, but I also met with Councillor Millie Livingston, so unfortunately that was excluded from the 9th of January meeting, so thank you.
So we have the recommendation that the report be received. We have a mover for that. Councillor Miller. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Any questions or comments on Andrew's report? Councillor Coomans.
I think this was answered before, so please remind me, I'm getting a bit stuck, it's getting late, but with your meeting with Minister Champion regarding the South Coast strategy, were some discussions held on Area Q?
Through the Chair, so the Minister, I guess, sent the invitation for that meeting. Matt Atkinson, the Mayor, and myself attended that meeting in town in Adelaide. We were expecting the Minister to share something with us or talk to us about something, particularly in relation to the South Coast Growth Strategy. However, he didn't do that. What he did ask is for us to provide an update on the South Coast Growth Strategy, and that was essentially the meeting. I might ask Matthew or Matt to come up and just talk a little bit further about some of that discussion.
Thank you. Through the Chair. That's generally the gist of how the meeting went. We did go there expecting to hear something from the Minister, having been requested by the Minister to come in and have a chat. I provided an update on where we were at with the South Coast Growth Strategy. There were some questions that did relate to Area Q from the Minister. We sought some clarification about Council's role with the South Coast Growth Strategy being a council document, and also how that links in with the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan. What we were advised by the Minister at that point was that the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan would likely be out by March this year, and that in relation to Area Q, the Minister's view was because that area sits within the environment and food production area, that even if Council was to include it within its strategy, which is the prerogative of Council to do, should they wish to, that area wouldn't be considered as part of the GARP or any potential rezoning until the other areas that are within the township boundary that aren't subject to the EFPA are exhausted. So that was the general messaging that we received in relation to that. We did talk a little bit more broadly about some of the areas of Goolwa North. The Minister wanted to make it clear to us that that decision wasn't a decision for the GARP. It was one that was made through the 30-year plan for Greater Adelaide a little over a decade ago. And he did clarify that they wouldn't be looking at readdressing that as part of the GARP, and that we should consider as a council including a staged approach to the delivery of that land should we want to have some level of influence over how that area developed. I think that's a general sort of overview of what the discussion was with the Minister.
Are there any further discussions, questions of Andrew? No, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 9.10 is the council resolution register, and there's a recommendation there before you. Anything to add, Andrew, on that?
Through the chair, members, this report perhaps looks a little different to what you've seen before. What we have done with the resolutions is created another report so that we can actually reduce the amount of updated comments that you have to read, so that the comment you read against a particular outstanding decision will be the most updated comment. That'll ensure that we can provide a bit more focus on the commentary that we provide to you. Furthermore, the cover report is asking members to not only receive and note the council resolution register, but also to confirm that it's a true and correct record, and members confirm that it's satisfied that the decisions marked as complete within the attachment have actually been enacted to your satisfaction.
So there's a recommendation there before you. Is there a mover for that, Councillor Scott? Seconder first. Seconder, Councillor Maidment. And
apologies, Your Worship, I did have a question just related to a former resolution of Council regarding a report coming to the Chamber on Little Corella management. I checked last at our January meeting, and that was not in the resolutions register, and I haven't seen it in this one. Apologies if I have missed it, but I don't recall getting that report, so I'm just following up as to whether that would mean that that motion should be here.
any further discussion on that one? Councillor Maidment.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions here regarding the Goolwa Recreation ground lease. Has it been signed? What ongoing costs to this council once it has been signed? Could that be forwarded to us at some particular point in time? I know we have been affording the Ground Management Committee a considerable amount of money in the past, so I just wanted to see if it was actually reduced. Second question is to Matt Atkinson, I suppose. It's disappointing that the Langhorne Creek Code Amendment was unsuccessful with grant funding. Are we going to drop the ball on this and just reapply in subsequent years and just put that on hold? And the third question is any reason why the wooden boat strategy review has not been started, given that it was passed at our 15th of the 7th 24 council meeting, and I would assume that strategy would have informed our budget deliberations 25-26.
Through the chair, I'll start with a question related to the Langhorne Creek accommodation potential code amendment in that space. We were unsuccessful with the grant funding that we applied for to fund that particular project. But we do have some form of a backup plan. I think when we initially reported to council, we did say that we would be able to do it in-house. However, the timeline for it would be extended due to current resourcing. As part of the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan, at least the draft version that we've seen that was on public notice, they are talking about councils having the option of preparing a housing strategy or something similar that would need to be prepared by March 2027. There's an opportunity, I think, within that broader housing strategy for us to look at options that sit outside of the major townships, and the Langhorne Creek accommodation work could roll into that quite nicely, along with a couple of other strategies like the affordable housing plan, local affordable housing plan, that sort of thing. So it's not off the radar altogether, it's just that we missed out on that first bit of funding.
Through the chair, so just on your question regarding the Oval, I am actually drafting as we speak an update for members on where we're at with that, with the Gore Recreation Grounds. I've commenced working with the subcommittee of the Gore Recreation Grounds Management Committee now that they've got a president. Very pleased to hear that they've got one now. So working with the president, the vice president, and one of the members who represents the footy club. And also our lease team with Lisa Hoyle to really dive a bit deeper. It's quite a complicated lease just because of the makeup of that precinct. So we're just trying to make sure we can streamline it and make it as efficient as possible. I think the other question you might have asked around the Oval is what are the ongoing costs once we sign the lease? Yep, I won't be able to answer that right now, but I can definitely put that together for you. And then you also asked about the wooden boat strategy, and I think you asked why haven't we progressed the boat strategy? Was that the question? Yep. So we definitely have progressed some of the strategy actions, and I think we provided a report late last year as to where we're up to on that. We are continuing to still work through those actions, but a lot of the actions in there we actually paused pending a potential service review, which I think we're coming back to council soon on whether that service review and others that were indicated to go ahead this financial year, whether that will happen. So once we know that outcome, we'll either, if it's not going into a service review, we'll then pick those actions back up, but we did pause it thinking it would be more productive and valuable to actually do it as part of that review.
Is there any further discussion? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Item 10 is committee reports. 10.1 is a report from the Audit and the Risk Committee, the independent chairperson's meeting summary, and there's a recommendation with 2 dot points there. Is there a mover for that? Move, Councillor Maidment. Seconded, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion relating to that recommendation? If not, I will put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimously. 10.2 is a report from the Audit and Risk Committee second quarter capital project report, and there's a recommendation that we receive and note the report. Is there a mover, Councillor Gardner? Is there a seconder? Seconder, Councillor Miller. Any discussion relating to that report? Yep, Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Wish. I'll keep it brief. The Sugars Beach project was renamed, I think, somewhere along the line, but it's still in there. I appreciate this report is still being refined, and we're going to hopefully get to see the project budget and current level of expenditure and what's committed, because we've got 4 months left, and it would be great to get a better indication of how these are tracking. There are quite a few out to tender, which can make it tricky timing-wise. The new chair actually made the observation that there's a lot of optimism at the start of the year, but it's at the end of the year that reality hits. So on a percentage complete basis, it would be good to have that included. Sorry, I'm trying to make this really succinct. This is only about capital projects, actually, my next two questions will relate to the second quarter budget review, so I'll keep those there. But the committee really appreciated the report, and I really appreciate the report, and I know that it's going to be further refined, and it's really, really good to have a grip on these matters, so thank you.
Councillor Livingston.
Thank you, Mayor Parks. Just going on from Councillor Miller's comment in relation to the expenditure for the projects, and it was mentioned before if it would be possible to understand how far along a project is in terms of completion and budget as well, if that is possible.
Alan's taken that on notice. Is there any further? Councillor Maidman.
Yes, thanks. This was for the General Manager for Infrastructure, and I've had some questions from people living along Brayside Road about the Ford. It was due to commence on the 1st of the 5th. Has it started, and are you expecting completion by the end of this financial year?
Through the Mayor. Had you asked me that question a week ago, I would have said yes. We are currently working with the Landscape Board around water affecting permits and having to escalate some matters there before we can actually get started on that project. So from where there wasn't a potential risk, there is now a small risk that might not make it before the end of the financial year, but we'll keep you updated on that.
Any further discussion on this? If not, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 10.3 is the report from the Audit and Risk Committee, the second quarter budget review, and there is a recommendation there that we endorse that. Is there a mover for that? Move, Councillor Miller. You speaking to it or not?
Thank you. I have just some comments and a question. My first question is about the PS Oscar W slippage costs. It's not in here, but I understand they went over budget, and I'm just keen to ask before I speak to the rest of my items, because from memory we increased that budget by 25% on previous years, and I was actually going to ask a question about this wooden boat service review, but that's already been answered. So I'm just keen to know how we know what operational budgets are tracking at and if they're going over. But I mean, particularly interested in the slippage cost, because I've heard on the grapevine that cost a lot more than it was intended.
Through the Mayor, you are correct. The second quarter budget review is based on the data that we kind of pull very early December. So it's kind of based end of November, early December. Just because of the timing of when it needs to come through to the council, this is probably running a little bit behind what schedule we would have had, and making sure staff are available pre and post Christmas to actually get feedback in. So whilst, yes, that has been running over its budget, no, it has not been reflected in the second quarter budget review due to the timing of when that data has been pulled through the process.
So how much is it over budget?
It's a great question. Off the top of my head, I don't know.
Stacey, take that on notice.
Take it on notice and I'll come back to you, Councillor Miller.
Is there any further discussion on this? Councillor Miller.
Sorry, I'll just keep this really quick too. So during the committee meeting, there was some questions around the CWMS connection fees, because there's a lot of revenue there, $1 million, but there's also $500 of rebates, and there was some questions from the committee about the processes around those rebates given to developers on those CWMS connection fees. And I understand the reasoning that was given and why, but I think it would be useful if council members could also please have a bit of an update via the portal or somewhere around how that CWMS connection fee charge revenue and expenses works. I'm probably not explaining that very well, but it is getting late. And they were asking for more information on Strathwater, which I think we do need to understand. That's a big part of our business, and that's all related to the SWIMS fees. I'm also looking forward to the asset renewal funding ratio breakdown by category. The Audit and Risk Committee requested that, and that's I understand that's being prioritised. But in the budget review, a budget building process for this coming the next financial year, I think if there's resourcing that's needed to get that information ready so that it can go to the committee, then I think we should give some priority to that. But thank you for the budget review. It's just, by the time we get it, things have changed so much, but it's good to be getting this update. And I thank you for the commentary that's in it. It's a really interesting and good report, and I know that it's coming, lots of work's being done in that space, and I really appreciate it as a council member. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Scott. Is there any further discussion on it? Councillor Scott.
If I may, just quickly, could we have an update on the Middleton Creek Bank stabilisation? Apparently that's suffered an increase. That's one question, and the other one is in relation to the cutting. As I read that, it's 90,000 over. So what's happened there? It says increased scope following further design investigation. So that is a serious amount of money, and I just would like to know.
No, two things. You need to turn your microphone on, and Alan will answer it. I don't know if it's a confidential matter you're talking to or not, but Alan, can you know what's going on? Sorry.
Through the Mayor, taking the last one, the cutting, which is the Dolphin Apartments, so the cutting as in the cutting Port Elliot. That piece of work was a retaining wall which sat below a rather steep embankment that was holding the apartments up. Considerable amount of work was undertaken on that. As they excavated through that, they found a significant further failure within that structure which had to be dealt with. So they had a very good idea about what was going on before, but latent conditions are always a risk in terms of civil and construction work, and in this instance they found those latent conditions, they had to deal with them.
Sorry, what conditions?
Latent.
Can you turn your microphone on please if you're going to talk? The other one, just have to remind me that which one was that? The first one you said?
The first one was the Middleton Creek Bank stabilisation.
Yep, that has the tender for that has just been awarded. I signed up for that paperwork late last week. So we would now look to program that work with the successful contractor according to the conditions at the moment. So I can't tell you exactly when that's going to occur, only that we have awarded it and we will seek to get it started as soon as it's practically possible, which includes weather conditions, seasons, etc. But we will inform you directly of when that's going to happen.
Thank you. Does that include west of the bridge, or is it only east of the footbridge? There's that bit up towards the railway line that encroached into that neighbour's land and took away a metre or two of land. Is that part of the rehabilitation, or is that a separate issue?
Through the Mayor, no, upstream, I'll talk about upstream of the bridge. That is a private matter being dealt with by the homeowner there at the moment, or the landowner. The downstream is what we've just been talking about.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion relating to this? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Thanks, Andrew. 10.4 is the report from the Audit and Risk Committee, the Strategic Management Plans. Tash, is there anything you need to add to that or update on it? Anything changed?
Through the Chair, just in relation to this recommendation from the Audit and Risk, they had quite a bit of consideration with respect to the strategic plans that have gone to consultation. And you'll note there that it's recommended not to actually adopt the long-term financial plan at this point in time, even though it was consulted on. The key reason for that is because of the work that Andrew and I are currently doing, and the fact that council members will shortly see some of that work as part of the 25-26 annual business plan and budget process.
So do we have a mover for that? Councillor Gardner. We have a seconder. Councillor Coomans. Any discussion? Not. I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. I meant to say at the end of the last item, with the Oscar W, I think anybody who can tell you how much it's going to cost to pull a boat that's 117 years old out of the water and what it's going to cost within a budget should be picking the lottery numbers next week, because we'll all be millionaires. You never get it right. And unfortunately what happens is you spend a lot of money one year and the next year you don't spend a lot. But there was a bit to do to it, and you've got to do what needs doing. 10.5 is the report from the Audit and Risk Committee. It's the Policy Review, Treasury Management Report. It's the recommendation that we adopt that policy. Is there a mover for that? Sorry, Andrew, do you need to talk to that? No, thanks. Sorry. So we have a mover, Councillor Gardner. Seconder, Councillor Scott. Is there any discussion relating to that policy? No, so I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 10.6 is a report from the South Australian Wooden Boat Festival Committee, the resignation of members, and there's a recommendation there before you, and I was asked by Councillor Nicholson about that. David Lloyd and Gregory Button, who operate the Murray Delta Duke Joint and Music, they pulled out because they really felt it was going to be a big music event involved as part of it, which it's really not. So they decided that they really didn't need to be on the committee. And Councillor Livingston might be able to tell us why Stephen pulled out. Do you know why he's not there?
Sorry, that was very bad timing. I think my understanding is that Stephen very much is still interested in helping where he can. It was just also about the place in time that the committee were at, noting that we had already started planning before going out for expressions of interest. And it was, if we'd been right at the start of planning this event, then my understanding is that he may not have resigned.
There's a recommendation that we accept those resignations. So is there a mover, Councillor Gardner? Seconder, Councillor Maidment. Any discussion? It's been explained. So no, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. I must say that some of the members of the committee, including the chair, were in Hobart for the Wooden Boat Festival last week or the week before, and apart from gaining a lot of information, they did a fantastic job of publicising and advertising this event for us, so it's good, at their own expense. 10.7 is a report from the Cemeteries Advisory Committee, the resignation of committee member Sandy Spencer. Alan, do you need to add to that anything? No. So there's a recommendation that we accept that and thank Sandy for her time, and note that the position be left vacant. So is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconder, Councillor Scott. Any discussion? So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 11 is council members' reports. 11.1 is the presiding members' report. It's my report. There's a recommendation that we note that report for January. Andrew, anything you need to add?
No, nothing.
Neither do I. That's all right. Thank you. So is there a mover for that? Councillor Maidment. Seconder? Councillor Nicholson. Any discussion or questions relating to that report? Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you. I'd just like to briefly note that I was asked by the community, by members of the community, to just seek more information about that meeting with the Minister for Housing and Urban Development, but I feel that was answered earlier. So
already been answered.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions or anything? No. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 11.2 is council members' activity report from Councillor Gardner. A recommendation that we note Councillor Gardner's report for December and January. Is there a mover that we do that? Councillor Scott. Is there a seconder? Councillor Miller. Are there any discussion or questions relating from Councillor Gardner about her report? If not, we'll put the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. 11.3 is council member activity reports, verbal updates. Before we do that, I would just like to make note that Philip Dodd passed away on Saturday evening. Philip is a stalwart of the community of Port Elliot. He's a landmark, and I know Philip reasonably well, but Michael Scott knows him extremely well. And so Michael, I've asked Michael just to say a few words about Philip, because it's a big loss to the community.
Certainly, Your Worship, the Dodd family have been in the real estate business in Port Elliot for about 100 years, and his father, Keith, was the main driver after his father was involved, and his father also was a prisoner of war in the First, Second War, but Philip followed on in his father's footsteps and ran Dodd and Page. He was, the family have been a great supporters of the Port Elliot Show over the years, and great supporters of the Church of England and their art show. He used to sponsor that, and he's been around. He was a great friend, a young friend of Nobby Clark and his brother Ern. If you remember, they were icons of Port Elliot, and they went out fishing together. And even the last time I saw him, only about 2 or 3 weeks ago, he was driving out with his boat to go fishing. It's all happened seems to have happened very quickly, although he had an illness that was serious, but he's gone very quickly, and that brings to a close. Well, he does have a son, but I don't think he's involved in the real estate business. So that'll see the Dodd and Page name close. And say, old Mr. Dodd was involved in the show committee back in the 20s, so 100 years ago. So they've had a long association.
So any other elected members' verbal updates? Yep, Councillor Scott.
Could I just add, just in particular, along with Councillor Gardner, I attended the Neighbourhood Watch meeting on last Friday in Goolwa. And during that time, as always for an annual general meeting, there are some crime statistics that are given to us. And I just wanted to report that Sergeant Darren Parker, who's there, who is nurturing and supporting Neighbourhood Watch, doing a sterling job. But he said, and I was particularly interested when he said, the population is going up, and he showed a graph of the population going up, and he said the crime rate's going down. Now, that is exceptional, and I think that it's a great credit to him, his team, and the Neighbourhood Watch people that are quietly looking after the community. If you think back 10 or 15 years ago, Goole was nearly out of control. There were cars being torched all the time, Gore Beach and all over the place. Crime was running amok. And I wondered whether it'd be appropriate that we send a letter, one to Sergeant Darren Parker and his team, and one to the Neighbourhood Watch, congratulating them on their efforts in what they do, because they're a little group. There weren't too many there, wanting members. I mean, it's a dry old job doing that, peeping over your fence every night. But I just thought, why not? Because we all benefit from that sort of a result. So I just wanted to add that. And if I may suggest or move or whatever, that we do send a letter each to both of those. Thank you.
It'll be part of the report. So is there any further discussion or things to add? Yeah, so we're looking for a mover for that. You wish to move that, Councillor Scott? A seconder, Councillor Livingston? Yeah, as part of that, yeah. Oh, yeah, it's written down in there. Sorry, it's written in the text, yeah. Yep. So that's it. I'll put that to you. All those in favour? Against? It's carried unanimous, sorry. Item 12 is confidential items.
South Coast Television, your community, your voice.